Hey folks, David Ryan with Gray Matters, and I am really honored to introduce to you Miten Agrawal. He's a distinguished alumnus of our Relationship Expansion Program and also Senior Vice President with Stout. Miten has over 14 years of experience in providing internal audit and SOX compliance services across a diverse range of industries, and Miten has established himself as a leading expert in his field. His journey includes significant roles at Deloitte and PwC, and he holds a BA in economics from the University of Maryland, College Park. Welcome, Miten.
Yeah, thanks for having me. It's great to be here.
Awesome. Miten, before we get into kind of the guts of our conversation, which is really about relationship building and some of the things beyond the technical that I think we're all realizing are critically important, perhaps you could kind of share a little bit about your journey, your career journey, what you're doing now, but also what got you to this point, the types of work that you're doing, et cetera.
Yeah, absolutely. So I started my professional career at PwC. I was based out of the Northern Virginia office in Tyson's Corner. Did primarily internal audit work for large federal agencies while I was there. Great experience there. I was there for 10 years. I joined when our government practice was just getting started, and we saw tremendous growth over the time that I was there. Fast forward, met my wife while I was living out there, and she's got a business out here in California, which brought me out to the West Coast. And I ended up working at Deloitte for about 3 years. Again, internal audit, Sarbanes-Oxley work, but working primarily now with large tech and fintech companies. Mm-hmm. And then I got a call about this opportunity at Stout, which seemed just really great. It's been fantastic. I've been here for 2 years now. And I'm still working in the risk advisory space here. Stout as a firm, we focus a lot on M&A transactions. We provide services for the entire transaction lifecycle for our clients. And so one of the areas that we really wanted to grow is our risk advisory practice, right? We see clients that are either going public or have recently gone public, and so they need to come into compliance with Sarbanes-Oxley regulations, right? And so we help them develop their internal control structures. We help them kind of redesign their processes so that they can achieve compliance. And then I also work with some of our integration and separation teams, right? So when a company has gone through an acquisition, how do you merge the two organizations, right? How do you harmonize some of the business processes? How do you sort of realign people and systems to get to that optimized state of operating? So that's where I am now.
Fabulous. Let me ask you, Miten, it's been almost 20 years, right, since this whole SOX thing kicked off, all due to Enron and that mess, right?
Yep.
How has it changed? Has it evolved? Is it still the same sort of regulatory compliance? Are people more aware of it, dialed into the systems and processes that are required? I'd be curious for you to give your opinion on that.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think there's been constant evolution, right? When SOX first came out, a lot of people just had no idea what they needed to do to be compliant, right? And they were relying on external auditors to say, hey, here's what you need to have in place, right? And I think at that point, people really saw it as sort of a check the box exercise, right? Let's put these controls in place, let's document this and move on with our lives. Having practiced it for as long as I have, you kind of start to see that you need to go beyond that check the box exercise mentality and realize that there's actually a lot of benefits to taking a good hard look at your overall risk management structure, your overall governance structure within an organization, and your internal control structure, right? Because once you start to identify where you have exposure to risk, you can put those controls in place, but you can also do it in a way that makes sense, right? It doesn't have to be a cumbersome exercise. And it doesn't, you can actually really improve your business processes by implementing these controls and do it in an efficient way. And then in terms of evolution for the technical matter, right? Now we see a lot of different areas that are emerging topics in this space, right? AI would be the big one right now. a lot of people are looking at how AI can benefit your business, but also how do you make sure you've got the controls around it, right? To minimize your risk as an organization. So that's one of the big emerging topics. I think there's constant evolution in this area. And what I always tell my clients is don't approach it as that check the box compliance exercise. It's much, much more than that. And it can add a lot of value to your business.
So, Miten, I was just at a conference 2 weeks ago. Everybody's at AI conferences these days, right? But it was a lot of dialogue about the Chief AI Officer, CIAO, right? And what their responsibility is. Is it to be the arbiter of all things AI within a company? Is it to be the compliance or regulatory body to keep everybody in their swim lanes? My question is, I got to believe all the functional areas within a business, regardless of what industry you're in, will see the benefit of AI. But you almost have to have AI people with functional expertise in HR, in finance, in supply chain, in the key areas within the business. I'm not hearing much about that. Are you seeing much of it?
Yeah, I mean, I think that AI obviously can be very beneficial to a lot of businesses, right?
Yeah.
But you still can't lose that human function in all those areas that you talked about, right? There's still judgment that needs to be applied to key business decisions, to key business functions, right? And so the focus right now may be on the technology, but there is still a lot of consideration for what goes on the human side of it, right? And the decisions that leaders need to take. And so I think that chief AI officer role encompasses, all of those things that you said. How do we leverage the technology to benefit the business? But how do we also maintain compliance? How do we manage our risk around it, right? And I think those are all things that they need to consider. And they need to work across that sort of C-suite and management to make sure that they're using it in a way that will help the business.
Well, I would think it's a big part of your business now. It's like you're turning a page and it's opened up new conversations with your clients around everything you've been doing for the last 20 years. But now the AI thing creates a lot of complexities and risk, et cetera, et cetera. I love it. Thank you so much for sharing on that front. So let's shift if we could. You're here because you were part of the Relationship Expansion for Professionals program about a year ago at Stout. But before we even get into the program, Miten, I apologize. This whole notion of communication, connection, collaboration, building relationships. Having done this as long as I have, the typical subject matter expert like yourself probably a lot of times discounts that piece of the business, that piece of the interaction, whether it's on a project, whether it's collaborating with peers. The tendency is for consultants to kind of lean into their subject matter expertise. And so I'd be curious to kind of know your journey around the awareness and importance, or maybe it wasn't on your radar. Just explain that a little bit more for me, if you would.
Well, I think, for me, more so than the subject matter, the relationships have been the really important part, right?
Yeah.
When we're talking about working in the professional services industry, I mean, that's your asset, right? That's what you're selling is your people. And so when we are going out to market, when we're talking to our clients, our potential clients, they're not just buying a SOX assessment. They're not just buying like a technical accounting memo. Right? They're buying a relationship with an advisor that they're going to rely on to provide them that expertise, right? As they navigate all of these issues. And so I've always viewed relationships as a critical part of my professional journey. Even in my days at PwC, I had certain clients that would specifically ask for me to be staffed on the engagement year over year because I had built that rapport with them. And I was providing them the insights that they needed to kind of take their risk management program further. And it's the same thing today. I constantly have clients that, they're bringing in a new system or they're kind of redesigning some of their business processes. and they'll reach out and say, hey, what do I need to consider from an internal controls perspective when we do this, right? And so that speaks volumes to me in terms of how I've built those relationships. So I think it's a vital part of any professional's career.
You've heard me talk about how are we showing up these days? Are we showing up as that tactical trusted advisor or more of that strategic trusted advisor? Tactical, kind of reacting to needs, waiting for things to come to us. Strategic trusted advisor, that more proactive, up on our toes, bringing thought leadership, bringing a point of view, knowing our clients' business issues, challenges, their knowledge gaps. We've got their back. We're your advocate, having open and honest conversations. It sure sounds like you got that. You recognize that early in your career. My question to you is, real quick, so comment on that, but also, what about other people that you work with in the same vein? Do they get it as much as you do?
I think everyone's different, right? And I've taken a number of sort of the insights profiles and the Myers-Briggs to kind of tell you a little bit more about your personality. And you have some of those folks that really fall on the technical side of things, right? They really enjoy getting into the details of the subject matter. And they're going to, they're the guys that I'm going to go to when I can't figure something out, or if I have a question, if there's some piece of technical knowledge that I don't know, I'm going to go to them. But they don't always feel comfortable on the relationship side of it, right? They may not be sort of as extroverted as I am. I love engaging with people, and that's what really energizes me. It doesn't come naturally for others, right? And that's okay. But I think it's also, as you practice building these relationships, as you employ some of the tactics that we talked about in Gray Matters, right? I thought some of that content was really helpful. Even for someone like me, where I feel like building relationships is natural. Not everyone is the same, and that's okay. But, I think it's still something that everyone should be aware of and try to continue to further in their career.
Thanks, Miten. And I think it's that last part that really kind of jumps out at me, and that is people probably need to dial up their awareness. This is an important piece. They may not be naturally wired that way, but if we're going to create separation and differentiation in a relatively commoditized world called professional services, we've got to go beyond just great technical skills. And that's why I'm in business. It's about the relationship expansion and comfort and collaborating, connecting, nurturing those relationships. You've been modeling that behavior. Have you seen other people kind of notice, as you're modeling it, other of your peers perhaps kind of maybe recognize that I need to dial this part of what I do up a little bit?
Yeah, I think people do notice, right? And I have team members that will give me that feedback, and they say, I really learn a lot from watching you engage with our clients and the way that you react to our clients' questions or provide your insights or your perspectives, right? And even the way that I present it, right? So I think people do recognize that, and they have some takeaways that they can sort of employ. And frankly, that's how I learned also. I learned it by watching some of the great leaders that I worked with and how they built their relationships with their clients, their peers, other leaders within the company. And so part of it is practicing yourself, but part of it is also watching others that are doing it well and kind of, taking those things back.
So, Miten, I love that you've learned from others, but let's be honest, there aren't that many of them, okay? I mean, the individuals who are really strong technically and are wired like you and these other individuals, these great leaders that you mentioned, who really recognize the importance of building and nurturing those relationships, I just don't think there are as many of them, which is why we work so hard at kind of onboarding the next gen. Those manager, senior manager level, in your case, VPs, that next generation of leader needs to be cultivating these skills earlier, in our opinion. And that's why we've been doing this here for 20 years. So let's shift into, if you don't mind, the program that you experienced about a year ago or so. You're really good at this. It's clear. Okay. And so my question was there value in your sitting through, I think it was, we didn't unfortunately do them live. We did four 2.5 hour Zoom sessions.
Yep.
I think over the course of about a month, one a week. What was it that stood out to you in terms of skills, learnings from the RX program that you've been able to kind of weave into your repertoire, your already solid repertoire when it comes to relationship building?
So I think what the value that I really found from it was building that structure around relationships, right? I feel like I was really good at building a relationship when I meet somebody, right? We'd have a good rapport. I wasn't always great about the follow-up, right? And so I think some of the materials that you provided, some of the techniques for making sure that you're staying on top of yourself to follow up with this person, check in with them, was really helpful. And I find myself doing that a lot more. I find myself going through my LinkedIn contacts to see if there are folks that I haven't reached out to in a while that I just need to check in and say, hey, how's everything going? And a lot of times I find it's not even necessarily for business development. It's just to check in, catch up, see how things are going. And sometimes those discussions actually turn into something that's business related, whether it's something I can help them with or that they can help me with, So it's great.
I love it. Just checking in and not making have to make it about business all the time, right? It's about staying on people's radar, staying fresh. Things change. If it's a year between our check-ins and something happens in month 6 where there may be an internal controls issue or a compliance issue, do they remember you? Maybe not, right? We have to find a cadence of connectivity with those individuals, and it doesn't always have to be a business ping, right? So love to hear this talk about a process, having a rigor, having a discipline. You're naturally wired to do this, but let's be honest, life can get in the way, billable hours get in the way, hitting utilization targets get in the way, deliverables get in the way, and oh, by the way, I got to go do this other thing, right? And but holding yourself accountable to maybe having a written plan of some kind and refreshing that plan. Tell me a little bit more about the rigor you've kind of built into your system, if you will.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, so you mentioned life getting in the way, right? And that's it's a big part of it. As you can see, I have some artwork here from my kids. I've got 2 kids that are 7 and 4. So life does indeed get in the way often. And so the rigor that I built in is really at least once every 2 weeks, right? I'm kind of going through my contacts to identify, all right, who are the folks that I need to reach back out to? Who are the folks that I haven't talked to in a while? Was there anything that I discussed with somebody, a couple of months ago that we were going to try to circle back on? And if so, I need to make that outreach, right? Or put it on my calendar. And so it's just constantly sort of revisiting my network, and even the networks of other folks that I know, because, when you build that relationship, those folks are going to be more willing to introduce you to someone that might be able to help you, that might be able to bring in next contract or engagement for you, right? And you have to ask, right? But you also have to have that relationship where you feel comfortable asking. That person feels comfortable referring you to somebody within their network, right? And so keeping that up, like at least once every 2 weeks, refreshing, my list of folks, refreshing the outreach that I need to make is something that I've really started employing after taking your program.
Great. So let me ask you, so you are committed to a process. What's your system? Are you using a CRM? Are you using an Excel spreadsheet? Are you using Outlook to kind of keep you on track to know, hey, it's been 2 weeks, or I've got to reach out to Can you share with the rest of your alumni peers?
Yeah, for me, it's really keeping a spreadsheet, or sometimes I use OneNote as well, just to kind of track some activities. If it gets to that point where we're having sort of meaningful business development conversations, I'll start plugging that into our company's CRM, right? Yep. Because I want to track those discussions as well. But if it's just a catch up with somebody and, we're just checking in to see how everything's going, then I'll keep that offline until it progresses to that point.
Got it. So, but it's not quite offline. It's not this is offline, right? It's into
Yeah.
it's into a OneNote, you said, or it's into an Excel spreadsheet, or perhaps it's notes in your Outlook, input for the particular individual. Great. We can all commit to having a system, but until we get it out of our head and into call it a technology, if you will, even if it's a handwritten, I don't care, but something that holds us accountable and that we are able to refresh. So important. So love that. Thank you.
That's handwritten notes are the best.
Yeah. A few Post-it notes here and there, right?
Exactly.
So Miten, anything else pop out at you? So the rigor, the discipline, we hear that a lot. Any of the other kind of key learnings in there that might have shown up perhaps in a different way for you?
Yeah, I think really taking a step back and looking at sort of your delivery style, your engagement style, right? We talked a little bit about that. How are you showing up, and how is that perceived by the person on the other side of the table, right? I think that was really important because it's hard to kind of step back and get into your own head to say, well, is this, am I delivering the message that I would like to be delivering, and is it coming off the right way? And so being deliberate about thinking about the delivery, thinking about how you sort of, sit across the table from someone and interact with them, I think is really helpful, right? You get to refine your approach as you have more and more conversations with folks. And that gets back to being more comfortable, like we talked about.
Yeah. So Miten, one of the modules that we teach is kind of that self-awareness, personal awareness, and understanding style, understanding our own style, but also recognizing that the individuals that we're interacting with may have a different style or consume information differently, right? Some are very data-centric, analytical, systematic. Some are more casual, informal. And it's really important for us to kind of read their preferred style and also try and pivot in, adapt, and mirror their style versus, kind of grinding it out in different styles. I think that's what you're talking about, correct?
Yeah, absolutely. We talked a little bit about, how whether we see other folks that are sort of, as inclined to do this relationship building as I am, right? And you kind of mentioned it. Some folks are geared toward that technical analytical style and can match those personalities with the clients that really want to get into the nitty gritty, right? And then you have some clients that are like, just give me the 50,000 foot view.
Right.
And, I'm trusting you guys to take care of the rest. So the way you communicate there changes, right? And having that self-awareness, I think, really lets you pivot quickly when you need to, right?
Awesome.
So I think it's really important.
Terrific. Great learnings. Thank you. Let's continue. You've had about a year to apply these learnings. You've had 20 years more to do what you do fairly naturally. But a year ago, you were exposed to the RX program and some of that rigor and discipline, maybe solidified some things in your head, maybe validated some things that you're already doing fairly naturally. But now you go, hey, it's part of the RX program. It must be good. Kidding. But right. Bottom line is, what have been the results? Have you seen the needle move in terms of how you're showing up perhaps a little bit differently since the program about a year ago?
Yeah, I think, I would say I'm definitely much more aware of sort of, movements that are happening within either my clients' companies or their personnel, right? I'm more intentional about taking a look at my contacts and seeing if they're moving around to different companies, right? To check in with them and say, hey, how's the new gig? I think in terms of tangible benefits, I've seen some of my relationships with my clients strengthen, right? There's more informal outreach. I'll get a text from them randomly in an evening saying, hey, I need your thoughts on implementing this process, right? What are the control considerations we've got? Or, hey, let's chat tomorrow, right? And A lot of times in the past, that kind of communication would happen via email or sort of during business hours. But the fact that they feel comfortable texting me
Yeah.
and, and just saying, hey, I've got a question, let's chat tomorrow. That tells me that we've taken that relationship, sort of to a different level. There's a different comfort level there, and there's a different trust level where they know I'm gonna show up and help them with whatever the issue is at hand.
So, Miten, it sounds like you have flipped from no's to yeses. Remember, we talked about the 4 yes assessment
Yep.
and measuring the strength of relationships. And it really gives you more of a reality check of just where I am objectively about in terms of the strength. Too often we overestimate the strength of our relationships, but when we use that 4 yes assessment, they make time for me. Our conversations are open and honest. They seek us out for advice and counsel, and they're willing to risk their reputation for you. And if you can say yes to all 4 of those, that's a strong strategic trusted relationships. What's nice about what you're saying, you flip some no's to yeses. Maybe they're now seeking you out for advice and counsel where they didn't before. So you can actually measure advancement of relationships that we have, in fact, moved the needle in some positive ways. That's fabulous. Thank you.
Absolutely.
Any other, you also talk about just awareness, doing your homework, being smarter about the goings on of the individual or the firm that they work for. And when we do that, we're more sensitized to maybe hearing things, picking up on signals, maybe asking a few more questions, being curious. Has it enabled you to maybe uncover any deal flow, any incremental opportunities to drive revenue and service a client?
So there are opportunities that I'm tracking, and potential for work down the road. This year, as you know, has been kind of difficult in this space, right? Not as many deals going on. Not the IPO market has just been almost non-existent, right? And so I think there is a lot of there are a lot of companies out there that are sort of tightening the purse strings. They're taking a more conservative approach until some of this activity comes back, right? So from that perspective, there are things that I'm monitoring, actively following up on, but it's going to take some time, and especially for when we're talking about a service offering like risk advisory or Sarbanes-Oxley assessments. Those tend to be long-term relationships, right? It's not. You're not writing like just a memo or a quick hit project, delivering on it, and then they may not need to use you again until another issue like that comes up. SOX work is very cyclical, right? And so once you build that relationship and once you're delivering for your clients, it's annual work, but it's it's a long-term game. So it takes a while to build that trust and that relationship as well.
Miten, you're playing the long game. I love it. It's so important. Sometimes when we teach our program, the assumption for the individuals who go through it is, hey, I'm going to go sell something tomorrow.
Right.
That'd be nice. But the reality is we've got to play the long game, right? Now, there may be some bluebirds that fall in our lap. So near-term opportunities, but when we're thinking long-term, where we're invested in this relationship that we're creating with other individuals, good things are going to happen. This has been a great time, even though it has been a slower time for pro services. This is the best time to double down on relationship building, continuing to nurture, stay top of mind, those sorts of things. It sounds like you're doing that. And there are opportunities being surfaced. Are they going to close in the immediate future? Maybe not, but at least they're percolating and you're aware of them. And that's all we're asking. In the spirit of RX, it's just activating folks like yourself who are client facing to be paying attention to other opportunities that are out there. They are there. And you seem to be doing a great job of nurturing them and identifying. Last couple questions, if you don't mind, Miten. Why are you part of the Relationship Expansion alumni group? We've got about 340 people part of it. We're hoping to add to those ranks. We've had almost 10,000 individuals go through the program. It's an opt-in program, so or part of LinkedIn. So you have to be invited, and then you have to opt in and accept. Why did you accept?
Well, for one thing, I think you've got a lot of great content on there, right? I love seeing the updates, the little quick hit reminders like, hey, this is something that we can be thinking about, because it helps keep me in line, right? It helps make sure I'm applying that rigor. But also, you've got a great network of professionals there, right? A lot of folks that are kind of going through the same learnings. They can share their successes, what they've learned. And again, it's just another opportunity to build more relationships, right? And that's really what this is all about.
I'm glad to hear that. That was always the intent, is build community of like-minded individuals. Some of you might be competitors, but the reality is, when it comes to the context of why you're part of this group, it's all about technical subject matter experts who are, for the most part, being asked to do things that aren't necessarily natural for them. Go build relationships, go identify deal flow, et cetera. And we can support each other. And that's one of the big anchor tenets around being part of the alumni community. I'm glad you're recognizing that there's a benefit there. And we're just thrilled to have you, Miten. Let me ask you before I let you go, you moved out west for a reason. Do you want to share a little bit about that? Because I think it's a great, an interesting story.
Yeah, absolutely. So when I was living in DC, I met my now wife through a mutual friend. She happened to be traveling there because she owns and runs her family winery. It's called Hoops Vineyard. And so she was doing a week of wine tastings. We met through our friend, started dating, and then fast forward, she said, if we're going to take the winery to the sort of that next level, I need to be in California, and I need to find a place where we can host people and really kind of showcase the product and our family story and all that. And so we moved out to California in 2017. We ended up finding the location just south of Yountville that we have now, went through renovations, and now we've got this beautiful space where we can host customers. We've got a regenerative organic farm, a rescue animal sanctuary. So it's very family friendly, even though it is a winery. You don't find a lot of that in Napa, but we have people bringing their kids and dogs all the time. And it's just a great place to raise our children, right? They get to see what it takes to grow your own food. What it takes to be responsible for the lives of the animals that are on the property. And so it's just, it's an amazing opportunity to be able to give them to be out here. And of course we have great wine. So
yeah, that's fabulous. And it's Hoops with an E, right?
Correct. So
yeah. I just want to make sure people know that.
The website is hoopsvineyard.com. So HOOPES vineyard.com.
Fabulous. And I'm going to assume, Miten, that Hoops is in compliance, all the things that you do in terms of risk management, all buttoned up, right?
Absolutely. They don't need to comply with SOX just yet, but my wife, I definitely have conversations about how we can make some of these processes better.
Well, Miten, I can't thank you enough for being a part of our inaugural sailing of this video version of the Alumni Showcase. Thank you. You were awesome, and it was really an honor to have you. Let's please keep in touch. I hope you don't mind. I know that you and I had a conversation after the session last year, just talking about where you should be networking, where you should be spending your time. And so we had a sidebar coaching moment. And so for anybody who's listening in, I'm available. My team is available to have those sidebar conversations. I'm glad you took advantage of it, Miten. I hope others do the same. So I wish you all the best, my friend. Take care.
All right. Thanks for having me, David. This was great. And yes, for anyone listening, definitely reach out to David for those sidebars. It was very valuable. And yeah, keep up with him in the alumni group.
All right, pal. Take care.
All right.
Bye-bye.
Thanks. Okay, bye.